The sun sets over the rugged terrain of Corsica as Carlo Bonaparte, a prominent lawyer, welcomes a son, Napoleon, into the world. The child, destined for greatness, later anglicizes his name to Napoleon Bonaparte. Paris, 1784 day. A young, ambitious Napoleon, fueled by his fervor for military tactics and strategy, enrolls in the École Militaire, where he excels in his studies and swiftly rises through the ranks. Italian campaign, 1796. As the campaign begins, Napoleon, now a general at the age of 26, marches into Italy with the French army. His strategic brilliance and innovative tactics come to the forefront as he faces off against the Austrian forces. Napoleon's army initiates the campaign with a decisive victory at the Battle of Montenot. Employing a blend of speed, surprise, and strategic positioning, he outmaneuvers the Austrian General Beaulieu, securing a crucial win. The Battle of Lodi further solidifies Napoleon's reputation as a military prodigy. Here, he leads a daring frontal assault across a bridge over the Adda River under heavy enemy fire. His fearless leadership and audacious tactics result in a resounding victory, gaining him admiration from both his soldiers and the Italian populace. With his string of victories, Napoleon captures Milan, captivating the Italian public with promises of liberation from foreign rule. His charm and strategic vision win over many Italians, leading to support for his cause against the Austrian and Sardinian forces. Treaty of Tolentino. Following subsequent battles and negotiations, Napoleon secures the Treaty of Tolentino, forcing the Papal States to cede territory and pay indemnities to France. These diplomatic successes further expand French influence in Italy. The Battle of Castiglione proves pivotal, as Napoleon's forces triumph once more, solidifying French control over much of northern Italy. His military prowess and ability to inspire loyalty among his troops become legendary. As Napoleon advances, he establishes the Cisalpine Republic, a French client state in northern Italy. His efforts to dismantle the old order and promote revolutionary ideals gain him support among Italians eager for change. By the conclusion of the Italian campaign, Napoleon's reputation as a brilliant strategist and charismatic leader is firmly established. His victories not only expand French territory, but also ignite a fervor for nationalism and revolution in Italy, setting the stage for further upheavals across Europe. Battle of Austerlitz, 1805. Napoleon, commanding the Grande Armée, faces off against the combined forces of the Russian Empire under Tsar Alexander I and the Austrian Empire led by Holy Roman Emperor Francis I. The location, near the village of Austerlitz, was strategically advantageous for Napoleon. Napoleon masterfully feigned weakness, drawing the Allied forces to believe they had the advantage. Using deceptive tactics, he lured the enemy into a vulnerable position where he intended to strike with precision. Employing a tactic known as the central position, Napoleon deliberately weakened his center, enticing the Allied forces to attack it. Meanwhile, he reinforced his flanks, creating an illusion of vulnerability. This diversionary strategy was crucial to his overall plan. As anticipated, the Allies took the bait and launched a fierce assault on Napoleon's perceived weak center. However, this played directly into Napoleon's hands. With swift and calculated movements, he swiftly shifted his forces, encircling and isolating the enemy troops. In a decisive move, the French forces, under Napoleon's direct command, counterattacked the isolated enemy troops, creating chaos and disarray among the Allied ranks. The coordinated assault shattered the enemy lines, causing panic and confusion. The Battle of Austerlitz concluded with a resounding triumph for Napoleon. His strategic brilliance, combined with the discipline and efficiency of the Grande Armée, resulted in a decisive victory. The French inflicted heavy casualties on the enemy and compelled the Allied forces to retreat. The victory at Austerlitz solidified Napoleon's reputation as a military genius. It marked the peak of his military conquests and significantly altered the balance of power in Europe. The triumph at Ostritz further enhanced Napoleon's aura of invincibility and dominance on the European stage. Notre Dame Cathedral, Paris, 1804. The majestic Notre Dame Cathedral stands adorned with grandeur as crowds gather in anticipation of a historic event. Inside, the cathedral exudes an aura of solemnity and magnificence. Napoleon, dressed in opulent regal attire, arrives at the cathedral amidst a procession of dignitaries, military officers, and clergy. As Napoleon strides purposefully toward the altar, the air is charged with an aura of authority. He ascends the steps to the high altar where Pope Pius VI, representing the spiritual authority, awaits, bestowing upon this ceremony a divine legitimacy. Pope Pius VI crowns Napoleon with the laurel wreath, and in a moment of historical significance, Napoleon takes the crown from the Pope's hands and places it on his own head, signifying his claim to power as not solely derived from divine right, but from his own will and the will of the people. The cathedral resonates with the sound of trumpets heralding this monumental occasion. The coronation oath is administered, and Napoleon swears to uphold and defend the Constitution of the French Republic, solidifying his rule under the guise of continuity with the revolutionary ideal. The ceremony concludes with Napoleon's wife joining him as empress, further emphasizing the establishment of a new imperial dynasty. Napoleonic Code, Palais de Justice, Paris, 1804. The Napoleonic Code, officially known as the Code Napoleon or the Code Civil de France, stands as one of Napoleon Bonaparte's most significant and enduring legacies. Introduced in 1804, it aimed to consolidate various pre-existing French laws into a single legal code and establish a standardized set of laws across France. The code had a profound impact not only in France, but also on legal systems globally. Before the Napoleonic Code, France had a fragmented legal system influenced by customary law, feudal privileges, and regional differences. Napoleon sought to create a unified legal system that reflected the principles of the French Revolution, while also consolidating his authority. The code sought to provide clarity and coherence in the legal system, ensuring that laws were easily accessible and understandable to all citizens. The Napoleon Code enshrined the principle of equality, stating that all citizens were equal before the law and should be treated as such, regardless of their social status or birth. The Napoleonic Code emphasized the sanctity of private property, establishing clear guidelines for property ownership, acquisition, and inheritance. Napoleon Code introduced reforms in family law, including provisions regarding marriage, divorce, and child custody. It granted more rights to husbands and fathers, but also introduced some protections for women and children. The code separated church and state, emphasizing civil rights over religious laws in legal matters. The Napoleonic Code left a lasting imprint on legal thinking and jurisprudence worldwide. Its emphasis on clarity, equality, and property rights became foundational principles in many modern legal systems. Despite some criticisms and modifications over time, its impact on the development of civil law remains profound, and elements of the code persist in legal frameworks across continents. Downfall and legacy. Russian campaign, 1812. Napoleon's ambition to expand his empire and weaken Britain's influence led to his decision to invade Russia. In June 1812, he assembled a massive army of around 600,000 soldiers, comprised of French, Polish, German, and other European troops. The French Grande Armée crossed the Niemen River, marking the beginning of the invasion. Initially, the campaign seemed promising as Napoleon's forces advanced into Russian territory without much resistance. Battle of Borodino. The decisive clash occurred near the village of Borodino on September 7, 1812. It was one of the bloodiest battles of the Napoleonic Wars. Though the French emerged as victors, they suffered heavy casualties, weakening their forces. After Borodino, the path to Moscow lay open. Napoleon and his army entered the city on September 14, 1812, expecting surrender or negotiation. However, to their surprise, Moscow was abandoned by the Russians, and fires erupted, destroying a significant part of the city. With Moscow under French control and no sign of Russian capitulation, Napoleon faced a critical dilemma. As the harsh Russian winter approached and supplies dwindled, he realized the impossibility of maintaining a prolonged occupation. Reluctantly, on October 19, 1812, Napoleon ordered the retreat from Moscow. The devastating retreat. The retreat was catastrophic. Harsh weather, lack of provisions, and relentless Russian attacks decimated Napoleon's army. The Russian scorched earth tactic, destroying resources that could support the invaders, added to their woes. By the time Napoleon's retreating army crossed the Berezina River in late November, it had been reduced to a fraction of its original size. Starvation, disease, and brutal weather had taken a heavy toll. The once mighty Grande Armée was shattered. Napoleon returned to France, leaving behind a trail of devastation in Russia. The failure of the Russian campaign significantly weakened his military strength and eroded his reputation as an invincible leader. Napoleon's exile to Elba in 1814 marked a dramatic turning point in his life. After facing military defeat and abdication as Emperor of the French, he was sent into exile to the relatively small Mediterranean island of Elba. Napoleon, a once mighty emperor, now finds himself confined to this secluded haven. As he arrives, the contrast between his former grandeur and the humble surroundings becomes starkly evident. Napoleon, though stripped of his power, retains an air of dignity and resilience. His arrival is met with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension from the local populace, who have heard tales of his conquests and rule. He begins to adapt to his new life, transforming the desolate island into a miniature empire of his own. He establishes a small government, initiates infrastructure projects, and engages with the locals, attempting to regain a semblance of authority and control. Despite the limitations imposed on him, Napoleon remains a figure of intrigue. Visitors from Europe and loyalists make their way to Elba, seeking audiences with the fallen emperor, reminiscing about his past glories, and contemplating the possibilities of his return. Napoleon's military strategies and tactics revolutionized warfare. His innovative use of artillery, formation tactics, and rapid maneuvering changed the face of battle. The principles he employed, such as concentration of force, are still studied in military academies worldwide. Napoleon initiated vast infrastructure projects, including the construction of roads, bridges, and canals, which facilitated trade and communication. He also implemented educational reforms, establishing state-funded schools and universities, aiming to create a more educated populace. He streamlined administrative processes, creating a centralized government system that improved efficiency and governance, influencing administrative structures in several nations. Napoleon's conquests and promotion of national identities in the countries he conquered contributed to the rise of nationalism across Europe. His actions led to the unification and strengthening of certain national identities. His rule sparked an interest in Egyptology and ancient cultures, leading to the study and preservation of historical artifacts. Moreover, Napoleon's influence on art, literature, and fashion during his era has left an indelible mark on cultural trends of the time. Napoleon's legacy remains a subject of debate among historians and scholars. Some view him as a hero who brought progressive reforms, while others criticize his authoritarian tendencies and the devastating impact of his conquests on nations and people. Overall, Napoleon Bonaparte's legacy is complex and multifaceted, spanning military innovation, legal reforms, infrastructure development, and a lasting impact on culture and national identities, leaving an enduring mark on the world stage.